Join us every Wednesday for InFocus, a weekly talk show produced by the St. Kitts Nevis Information Service, where we provide exclusives with key persons within the government and discuss pertinent, relevant, and interesting matters that affect us all. Tune in every Wednesday, live on ZIZ Radio and streamed live on Facebook at SKNIS Media and ZIZ Online. InFocus, your government, your business.
I'm Ian Richards, welcoming you to InFocus, a weekly program where we take a closer look at what's happening within and across the government of St. Kitts and Nevis, your government. The 90-day campaign against violence and crime, launched in September 2024, was a game changer, uniting public, private, and civil society sectors in a collective effort to combat crime and violence. The campaign tackled the root causes of violence and laid the groundwork for long-term safety and security across the nation. Now, as we move beyond the 90 days, the government of St. Kitts and Nevis, through the Citizen Security Task Force, continues to inspire change. On February 26, 2025, the first ever Day of Interruption was staged. It was an unprecedented national student intervention initiative aimed at breaking the cycle of violence and building safer, secure communities. Now, today we'll go beyond the 90 days and explore how this groundbreaking initiative is building partnerships for safer community. With us to discuss that would be Coordinator of the Citizen Security Secretariat, Eartha Carey, and Charmaine O'Dane, Sergeant of Police and Task Force member within the Citizen Security Task Force. Stay with us as we delve into your government on InFocus. It's your government, your business.
If you haven't done it as yet, please do it today. Subscribe to our YouTube page at SKNIS Media for regular updates, live coverage, and even more information on your government. While you're at it, like, share, and interact with our Facebook and Instagram pages at SKNIS Media and SKNIS Info.
Welcome back to InFocus. Thanks for staying with us, and allow me now to welcome to the first time on our program Ms. Eartha Carey and also Sergeant Charmaine O'Dane. Welcome, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you for the welcome.
Okay. So we're going to get right into our conversation, and of course, as we mentioned at the top, we're discussing the 90-day campaign and the Citizen Security Secretariat and the Task Force, and I think that's a good place for us to start. Can you tell us, Ms. Carey, what is the difference, if there is one, between the Citizen Security Task Force and the Citizen Security Secretariat?
I won't say that there's much of a difference or a separation. The Secretariat is the house, so to speak. And of course, with having the house and we want to operate any activities or engagement, we must have a team. So that's where the task force comes into play. So we had to engage various stakeholders. Some are from the private sector, some are from the government sectors, and we just come together as a whole. That makes up the task force, but the Secretariat is what really hosts the task force team itself. So I would say there's a separation, really.
And how is the relationship working within the task force?
I would say it's a very good one because we have a mixture of experience that's there. I would say that the flow is good. Of course, nothing is great because there's always room for improvement. So I would say, but for now, the connection and the partnership in-house is good for now.
And Sergeant O'Dane, as a task force member, perhaps you can come in and speak to us a bit about the experiences that you've had on the task force. Of course, lending on your expertise from law enforcement. That certainly is very important.
Indeed. As Ms. Eartha Carey stated, that it's a good mixture of experience, and for the police to be involved, I would say it's a great thing to also involve the police because we're out there. We are seeing the criminal activities. We're also not only there to lock up, but also there to bridge that gap with the community as well. And that is one of the most important things in order for our job to be successful.
And of course, as a police officer, you head the National Intervention Team, which really deals with community policing. So you are adequately equipped to really help to give an input in these matters.
Indeed, yes.
Okay. So Ms. Carey, tell us about your role as coordinator. What does that entail?
It entails putting things together, ensuring that there's a smooth flow of operation, bridge the gap where there's a need. Let's say, again, we're working as a partnership, we're working as a whole, so if one person can't come up, then of course I will immediately fill that gap. But my role basically is to ensure that all operations, activities are coordinated well, get the relevant information out in the public in collaboration with the other persons who are responsible for that role also.
Right, I did mention it at the top, but you also are the Force Personnel Officer for the Royal St. Christopher and Nevis Police Force. How do you balance the two?
Well, I would say the balance comes from passion and purpose. If you have a passion, if you have a purpose, you will find some sort of balance when it comes to engaging and doing your operations. I balance it because it works hand in hand. Police, national security, it falls hand in hand. So information that falls in the Royal St. Christopher and Nevis Police Force also extends over to the national side of it, which is the Citizen Secretariat. So the information, it flows, and it's just about putting it together.
Right. It's an interesting point that you made in terms of it being hand in hand, because there are still some persons who are unsure what citizen security really means, and I want both of you to chime in, but we'll start with you, Ms. Carey.
Okay. The Citizen Security Secretariat, the Prime Minister, of course, he would have looked at certain factors that are affecting us in society, and as he mentioned that it is important to have one steady place where we can just focus on the security of citizens. So in saying that, that department would then look at any areas that would be relatable, right? If you speak to Sergeant O'Dane, sorry, Sergeant O'Dane, she can expound a bit more on how that is.
Okay, so for me, citizen security is about all the stakeholders coming in together for one common purpose, and that is to concentrate and diffuse the best that we can when it comes to crime and violence. The national intervention team is very much geared towards community policing, and one of the things that came out of it is the reinstatement of the Teens and Police program that started about 3 weeks in the high schools, and that is about bridging the gap with our youths and the police.
Now, the TAPS program that was introduced under, and I don't quite remember the year, but I do remember, of course, that Selvin G. Wallen was the commissioner of the police at that time, and it was adopted from, I think it was the Harris County Sheriff's Office, either that one or Orange County. They're one of them because they were sister agencies with the Royal St. Christopher and Nevis Police Force at that time. And so, with the TAPS being reintroduced, how do you see that enhancing the work of the community policing team, intervention team?
Well, my team is very excited every week to go out into the high schools because of the interaction that they have gotten so far, the positive interaction where our youths are eager to bridge that gap as well. So it's important for that partnership to happen. And my first day at a particular school, I mentioned something in the classroom, and then a parent messaged me because she was like, "Thank you for your help, because when I came home, my house was really cleaned," you know. And she said, "Oh," her child said, "I believe that you'd have talked to the police." But when she came home, all the chores were done because I tell them it starts with them.
Correct.
Even in the very home, the chores that they have to do, make sure that they do their chores and stuff like that. Help your mommy be mindful of your parents, what they have to do and what they bring in home. So I was very much overwhelmed with that response.
Because, of course, it speaks to the discipline in terms of maintaining structures of order, chain of command, and it also speaks to something that I think Minister of State, the Honorable Aislinn Phillip, who is a co-chair of the task force, she calls it creating a compassionate society.
Correct.
We have to be able to help each other. We have to be able to care about each other. Can you comment on the importance of that?
Yes. And in addition to that also, if we're going to be looking at career-wise, it's also a stepping stone for them because it teaches them responsibilities. It teaches them how to show up with confidence and stuff like that. So it really works hand in hand, you know, so to get them prepared for the real world, so to speak.
Okay. All right. And so, of course, as the Minister is a co-chair, Minister of State Phillip. The Prime Minister is also the chairman of the Citizen Security Task Force. Now, What input has he had in terms of the goals and the objectives of the Secretariat?
The Prime Minister has been very instrumental and very hands-on when it comes to meeting the objectives of the Secretariat. Reason being, we get the phone calls at 4 in the morning, 5 in the morning to ensure that things are going according to plan. And if we keep in mind the objective of what we are trying to achieve, the Prime Minister also have that objective. So he wants to make sure that we are playing the role, we are showing up, and of course there's consistency with whatever is set forth.
And the support from the cabinet level as well too, because of course it's a new unit.
Yes.
Of course it would have need staffing.
Yes.
It would have need funding. It would need resources to operate. How has that been?
I would say that we are getting to a point where things are running much smoother. Persons are coming on board in the relevant spaces that they are supposed to be filling. So I say the support is there also from the cabinets.
Okay. And you mentioned earlier that the Citizen Security Secretariat, it functions somewhat like a hub, where all of the information comes in and it's looked at and divided more or less, so to speak, that deals specifically with the citizen security aspect of it. Talk to us a bit about how that works.
Okay, let's say, for example, let's speak on the community engagements from the 90 Days campaign. You know, we go out in the communities, which is the task force. Of course, we went out into the communities and we would have gathered information. And of course, we're going to want some place to store that information. So the Secretariat is responsible for retrieving all the information from whatever activities, surveys, community events, and we keep them there, right, in the Secretariat. And then when we come together as a whole, we can always find that the information is in one space, not like it's in this ministry or that ministry. Even though we pull from the various ministry, we still want to have that one hub where all relevant information is kept, so it's easy and accessible when needed.
Mm-hmm. And Sergeant Odin, can you comment on how that would have assisted your work engaging with the community, engaging particularly with young people?
For me, it was an exciting journey because you get to interact with different persons from different walks of life. And hearing their concerns, some you could have dealt with immediately and some things would have to be put in place, but at least they knew that they had a voice and the government and persons are concerned about their voice and seeing how best we can filter and get resources to assist.
Right. Okay, and so Ms. Carey, the first time I met you really was on September 6th, 2024, last year.
Yes.
And it was at the Kuna Conference Center.
Correct. Now,
the occasion was the launch of the 90-day campaign, and you just referenced it, the 90-day campaign against violence and crime. For those who may not be aware, because of course this program also is in regional markets as well too, can you remind us of the 90-day campaign, what it was, what was the objectives?
The objective of the 90-day campaign was to have an initiative where we would go out, because if we're taking this from a holistic approach, the objective of the campaign was to get persons on board, the various stakeholders on board. So we had to go out in the communities. We can't stay from behind the desk and get the work done. We can't stay from behind the desk and get all the information to come. We had to find ways to interact. So therefore the 90-day campaign, it gave us roughly over 3 months to interact, to partner, build relationship, professional relationships that would end up in a position to put us where we're supposed to be if we are looking at curbing crime and violence from a public health perspective, because we had to look at it from that route versus looking at it from just the stabbing or the gunshots and stuff like that. We had to find what the grassroots was. So the Prime Minister's goal was to find a way to get the necessary information. That's why we had to take it from the public health perspective. And in doing that, we had to either start looking at activities, we had to start looking at it from a realistic, as a matter of fact, approach that is easy to a point, which is putting together activities or initiative that would give us the information in a space and in a timely manner so that we can start planning ahead.
Right. Okay, and mobilizing stakeholders, how difficult or how easy was it?
Everything starts with hiccups, of course. But what we have done in the Secretariat as a team is that we take those hiccups and we find ways to either diminish them one time, or we look at how we can go back to the drawing board and see how we can fix or how we can enhance, whatever it is. So It's a journey.
Sergeant, could you comment on that? Because, of course,
It's a journey.
the police has always been one. Law enforcement has always been telling the public, appealing to the public, we need your help. The police cannot do it alone. There must be someone who might have seen something. Of course, Crime Stoppers was introduced. I mentioned the former commissioner earlier. He was very integral in that in terms of, and the code always was, if you see something, say something. So tell us a bit about how having those community persons being brought on board would have impacted the work of the police.
This would show that police definitely cannot do it alone, and we need everyone's hands on deck. And it also builds the confidentiality that, you know, there's always been a gap when it comes to confidentiality with the police. And I think seeing police work closely with different stakeholders in the community, this would also ensure persons that police is working to bring in safer spaces, also with the confidentiality. So I think that it was a very good initiative, and still, as she said, nothing is perfect. We're still working. As you can see, we're here, so we're still working towards building that gap.
And one of the things I would like to mention, of course, is that it showed persons, especially young people, the policing from a different side.
Yes.
You got an understanding of the type of effort that goes into it. You got an understanding that police officers are our neighbors. They are our brothers or sisters or cousins.
Definitely.
That they are human beings as well too. And really and truly to treat a police officer as a robot or to think of them that way, it really was a wrong impression. And that would have to, as you mentioned, to humanize police. I would want to put it that way.
Yes.
To humanize the police.
We're not just here for enforcement, we're also here for communication. We're also here for creating safe spaces for our youths as well.
Correct.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. And so, Ms. Carey, can you share with us a bit of the findings of the 90-day campaign?
Sure. From the findings, it was revealed, how to put it in a simple form, things that we may overlook, they are in simple forms, but they carry a weight, meaning that the findings showed us things that we may have been overlooking for years that were contributing to the rise of crime and violence, right? And some of the findings revealed that...
Before you go there, what were some of those things that were being overlooked?
That's what I was about to get to.
Okay.
Some of the things that were overlooked is that, and these came from the voices of the communities, including the youths. Let's not leave them out, including the youths. If we had an engagement in one community, and some of the youths were saying that they know that there are issues that are in their household, and the parents did not know or do not want to take the approach to do stuff like counseling. Right? So when we look at
counseling for the
parents,
children or the parents themselves,
yes,
okay.
The parents. And when that was mentioned by a youth, I mean, we had to really take a step back and be like, okay, wow. So the children, for us, the team, it told us that the children are definitely paying attention to what's going on, and that is why, with the findings also, some of them revealed that's one of the reasons why they also turn to the gangs, so to speak. They turn to the gangs for support. They turn to the gangs for an ear. They turn to the gangs to render support or safety, as they may put it, because they felt safe with the gang peers, so to speak.
Anything that you'd like to add, Sergeant?
I'm glad that Ms. Carey mentioned about the voice of the youth, because just this week I had that similar impact where, you know, I had a meeting at Monday, a very long meeting at a high school, and one of the youths waited on the outside for me, you know, and he expressed himself respectfully and identified that the family needs help because this is why he's going towards certain behavior in school. And I felt good to see that, you know, this young man, a teen, I think he was about 15 years old, can reach out to the police and say, I've identified my family needs help.
And it speaks to the fact that most young persons seems to be in tune with their mental health. Yes. And that is something that I would say 15 years ago, certainly when I was growing up, it did not happen. You were always told to be a man, which means to be quiet and lead and be aggressive and be physical and be, yes.
Don't express yourself.
And young people, those are messages that are changing. So
Yes.
I'm sure that you welcome these things, these changes in society.
Yes. Yes, most definitely.
Okay. And so as you mentioned, the counseling in terms of family members, that's one part. Anything else that a key finding that you care to mention that would have come out from the campaign as well?
Yes, sure. Some of the key findings is also that there are drug use in some of the communities that we didn't expect to find, right? With drug use, of course, let's talk about, if you want to talk about marijuana, for example, the age group that was participating in such, right, you will be like, wow, we do the fine time, right? So that was one of the findings that came out of the findings. Also, there were, some of them spoke about poverty, some of them spoke about the impact that social media, the influence that social media has on their life when they want to live up to social media, so to speak. You know, they are influenced by some of those things. It also spoke about persons not being involved in the church. So that's where that's why we invited members from the various Christian councils and stuff like that to faith-based association to come in, because we want them also to be a part of what we have going on, because we have to set that standard. While we're setting the standard, we cannot keep the Christianity or whatever religion that it is, we can't keep them out of it, right? So that's some of the things that came out from the findings.
Sergeant, the drug use, was that startling to the police? Was that something, because of course you deal with young people and you deal with persons as well to enforcing the laws and the drug use. I know that there is a very critical involvement with schools. Was that striking for the police to discover, or was it known?
It was known, and there has been an increase over the past 2 to 3 years when it comes to involvement of youths with drug abuse.
What age are we looking at?
We're looking as young as 10 years old. The small amount between 10 to 12 is a small amount, but from 12 in the high school age group, it's ridiculous. And you often wonder why this is happening, why they're geared towards, and we have to look at vaping as well. Just last week or week before, I was passing a particular area, and one young man actually had 2 vapors in his mouth, in his uniform. And it is alarming when it comes to the drug abuse among our youths. And this is one thing that we have to try to see how best we can diffuse as soon as possible, because they're our future.
Right.
They're our future.
And so strategies coming out of the 90-day campaign to deal with these
Definitely.
matters. What are some of those?
Strategies will be aligning some of the things that we found from the report that we received, is aligning some of these to already existing resources, because the resources are out there, but I don't think that persons are aware of some of these resources. We have the Elevate program that has a lot of things going on that many persons do not know about. So some of these would be aligning some of the behaviors, some of the grassroots to some of the resources that is currently existing. In also looking at that, it would take us over into the education side of it, where the school will be heavily involved. Ministry of Education, they will be very much involved in what we have going on.
Okay.
And that is where for the youths, that is where the taps in the high schools come in. And it's not just about coming in and presenting or talking to the youth. They will be very much engaged as well. There's also a part where they have to learn to serve. They have to serve back to the community that the high school is in. They have to come up with their own way how they want to serve the community. So I am very glad that, and this is very timely with the TAPS program into the high school at this time. So we are hoping to see many successes coming out of this when it comes to impacting our youths.
Right. Okay, and we'll talk a bit more about the long-term strategy and its impact on the population a bit later. But of course, I want to jump into, as you would mention, Ms. Carey, the Ministry of Education, the partnerships here, the National Day of Interruption. But before we get into it, we're going to take our first break.
Okay.
We'll be right back with more In Focus.
The Day of Interruption was deliberately and intentionally named as interrupting transmission of cycles of violence is actually one key principle of the public health approach. And so in all the schools, public and private, primary and secondary schools, we had the commitment from the Ministry of Education to host special assemblies that focused on the theme of anti-violence and crime.
Me no know about you, but me love sing it's bad.
Thanks for staying with us. We continue our conversation with Eartha Carey, who is the coordinator of the Citizen Security Task Force, the Citizen Security Secretariat, and also Sergeant Charmaine O'Dane, who is a member of the Citizen Security Task Force. All right, so we just mentioned, and persons listening or watching this program would have heard a bit of an input from the Minister of State responsible for social development, but she also, as we mentioned, co-chairs the Citizen Security Task Force, the Honorable Esseline Phillip, and she was sharing a bit of information on the National Day of Interruption that took place here in St. Kitts. And I say national, it's going to happen in Nevis, and we'll speak to that a bit more. But tell us a bit about the Day of Interruption. What happened?
The Day of Interruption, it was overwhelmingly amazing. The responses from the initial start, during, and even after, because we are still receiving the kudos for how great it was. And based on the videos, the pictures, the feedback, it showed that it was well received. Also from the students' perspective, they were very much engaged. And then looking at some of the things that some of the schools did, like the dances, the poems and stuff like that, it showed that they understood the assignment, so to speak. So the Ministry of Education, we give them so many commendations for that, because they were definitely on board from the get-go. The teachers were involved, students were involved, even parents, because I was at the Washington Archibald High School that day, and there were parents on the outside when I got there. And even after I left, they were still on the outset, and they were just in support of what was going on. So the feedback and the day of itself, it was amazing.
And it's interesting that you mentioned that the Ministry of Education was on board from the
Yes,
onset,
from the
because I was going to ask about the ministry's response. Certainly, we know that our teachers, they do a very good job for the most part within the schools, and there's always that bit of a pushback that when something new is being introduced in the school, that it creates more work for them, that it's something that is going to distract the students. But you're saying that that didn't happen.
I can't say I got any pushback. I don't know behind the scene, but I doubt it. Because, again, when you look at the program that they put together, there was thought, there was time, and there was some sort of excitement. I almost felt like I was in a competition at Washi, because, like we would say in the community, it was jiggy. You know, it was really, really, really good. We had InFocus came on board at the Washington. We had also Footsie. He was well received also. We had De Jour. We had other artists who was at all the various schools, and they played such a big role there. So it was well received all across the board. Teachers were dancing. Teachers were engaged. They were just having a great time. And I am happy that that came off.
So the Day of Interruption was held where?
It was held on St. Kitts, the school island-wide, between both private and the public schools.
And that would be primary and secondary
high school,
schools.
and yes, invitation was sent out to all schools, including CFPC too.
Right. So you mentioned Footsie and De Jour and InFocus, those are entertainers, but they were also, Sergeant, a good mix of persons from the community as well too. I recall Model Cop, who most persons would know him as that. He's a driving instructor, a former sergeant of police himself as well too. Shaq, as most persons would know him. And there also was some politicians. I would have seen photos with the Right Honorable Dr. Denzel Douglas. I would have seen a photo with Natasha Gray Books.
Yes,
and Sergeant, I believe she did participate in the school that you went to.
Yes.
Talk to us about having those stakeholders, persons from all walks of life participate.
The partnership was really overwhelming to see everybody coming out to engage our youths in our federation. It was a well put together plan, and I think it was well executed. Nothing's perfect, but it was well executed. Seeing the influencers, seeing the politicians, seeing even the police and former members and ACPs and everybody involved. I saw the pictures, I was like, wow, you know, we did it. We planned and we executed it. Parents, and even I remember somebody messaged me from all the way Jamaica and asked me who came up with that idea of the day interruption, and I told her it came from Citizen Security, headed from the National Security and the Prime Minister. And it was like, she was like, this was awesome. This was awesome.
It was.
Yes.
I had a case where a teacher from the nurseries, preschool. They were like, so when are we going to return? You know, so it tells me that the message was well received and persons are out there ready to come on board.
So the persons who participated, as I mentioned, there's some politicians, some influencers, some entertainers. In fact, they were also reformed, I should say, reformed. And I think of you as well, too, who's also a part of His Majesty's prison as well, too. What was it like getting those persons? Was it difficult?
No, it wasn't, because again, we coordinated, we collaborated. We had Virgil Hodge. She was the one that also, and Elevate too. They came on board to bring out persons who were rehabilitated, persons who are still serving their time, but they are doing amazing in there. You know, they came out and they spoke to the students about, you know, not wanting to be where they are. They spoke to them and motivated them, like, you know, make sure you align yourself with greatness, make sure you put yourself in a position where you will be well received positively in the communities, and also persons can look up to you as an influencer in the end. So it was a great collaboration.
And the mix, Sergeant, can you talk about the mix of the personalities as well too, with essentially carrying one message, I would imagine?
Yes. We were all singing the same song, but in different ways, whether in song, whether in poem, whether as the influencer, as you said. It was well planned, and that is what we were aiming for, that persons carry one song, even though we might not be on the same professional team or the same parties. Natasha came out, and I can speak about her. She did an excellent job with our youths at 7 Day. They were very engaging. Even their performance was in line with our theme. So I think it was well received, and we see that our work is not being taken for granted. Persons are engaged in the peace mood. Yes.
So, go ahead.
Imagine that this was really scheduled to be about no more than 45 minutes, right, in the schools. And if they pass over an hour, because Beach Island was very long, again, the primary school, they just came out as small as they were. They came out. The program lasted like almost an hour and a half. So that tells us that they are on board. The children are aboard because they were excited, all of them, literally all of them. They sang lustily, they did whatever they had to do. We had a past student from the school at Beach Island. They came out, they sang calypsos, so to speak. It was well received, and I would definitely like to see something like this be continued. The Secretariat, we planted this seed as a stepping stone for the schools, you know, and of course they're all creative in their own way. And we expect that this will be continued as a part of bringing together, curbing crime and violence, ensuring that our young leaders are prepared for the outer world.
Now you mentioned Infamous, of course, and he would have been at the Washington Archibald High School. And as we speak about the personalities, of course, Prime Minister, the Honorable Dr. Terence Drew, he led from the front. He was there at Washington Archibald High School.
Yes, he was. As he mentioned, it was his alma mater. So, you know,
Right. And so the involvement at that very top level, showing support from him, what did that mean to the Secretariat?
Oh my. Leading is something that we must take into consideration, that not everyone wants to be a leader from the forefront, or not from the middle, or from the back. But anyone that wants to lead with ambition should be well recognized. So what it means for us is that he did not just say. He also involved, he inserted himself from start until finish. He showed up, he gave words of encouragement, and I can remember when he kept reiterating that to the students, you are special. You are special. So they went away with that, knowing that they are special, because the Prime Minister took time out to come out to the school and also share and also say that he's a part of what is going on. So that felt great coming from the Secretariat's perspective, that he didn't just say, okay, do this. He came out and he was a part of it.
And Sergeant, of course, leadership was also shown by the Commissioner of Police, James Sutton, and also members of the High Command. They were in different areas within the community. Talk to us a bit about that impact as well, too. And also, well, I'll get to the second question after that, but talk to us first about leadership there.
Yes, it was awesome to see the leaders come out in their numbers, especially to see my boss out in his numbers, and he has always supported any initiative where it involves youth. He basically stop his clock and get involved. So that is something that I can speak from when he leading from the front and loving our youths of our federation and wants to be involved with whatever is going on. So for me, even ACP for crime, I know they're very busy, but he came out, he was at Keon, and he himself sent me, his pictures to see.
Yes.
Oh, then I did show up. So it was awesome. It was really awesome. I know ACP Brown, he was also at Sky Academy, so
We
they
had
really...
superintendents at the other various
Yes.
schools. So we had Superintendent Lyndon David, we had Carey, we had Sergeant Haywood. It was everybody.
Everybody, all
Everybody.
hands on deck.
All hands on deck.
Right. And so, Sergeant, if you can tell us a bit about some of the personal messages and life experience that you would have shared with the young people.
Okay, for me, from the NIT standpoint, we came out with our superpowers, letting our youths know that they're superpowered, that they carry every day. And one of them is kindness. We also explained to them what is peace, for them to understand what it is to have peace and be peaceful. We also handled the conflict resolution, staying drug-free and gang-free from any violence, form of violence. It was short, but it was very much impactful. They were left with also a pledge to stay and to express their superpowers in kindness.
And that leads to the next question that I had. She said it was very impactful, Ms. Carey. The feedback from educators, the feedback from the students themselves, how is the message resonating with them today? Because of course it would have been done last week. Is there still that excitement, that anticipation, that willingness to change?
Yes, there's still excitement, and why I say that is because the feedback that we're receiving about that is that the time was too short. So it was well received, and they're looking forward to a continuation.
Okay. And so tell us about NIVIS. How is the initiative going there?
They're in their planning stage also, of course. They will have, if you see when we started out and we did the ad, it said the St. Kitts edition. So they have the NIVIS edition that's coming up. The date is not confirmed as yet, but we have PS Weekly and other members over there that are also in the planning stage of putting together the same thing that we would have displayed on St. Kitts.
In what ways do you believe this type of student intervention, and Sergeant, of course, I'll probably lean to you there in the initial stages to answer this question, can contribute to fostering safer communities across St. Kitts and Nevis? Sergeant.
For me, you see, our youths are very much... For me, most children go to school, do what they're supposed to do and stuff like that. There's just a few that linger, and my impact yesterday with the young man tells me that our youths want to change. They want to go on the right path. They want safer communities, and it is our job to execute that and to show them that we care and show them that we are working for them and on their behalf. So yes.
And in addition to, we want to reiterate that it's a partnership. It's about building relationship in the communities, and this would mean building relationship with parents also. One hand can clap, like my grandmother would say. If we want results, we must come together. So the parents, other persons in the communities, they must work with us hand in hand if we want to see great success at the end of the day.
So what other initiatives are being planned? Coming out, of course, from the information that was collected from the 90-day campaign, I understand there is something called a Better Opportunities, whether it's a summit, conference, I don't know. Tell me what's that about.
The Better Opportunity Fair. What that would look like, we would have various resources available for persons who's going to attend. We're going to have vendors. We're going to have job available for persons to apply for. So that would mean, again, collaborating with the various ministries. Labor, of course, Department of Labor, of course, they're going to come on board with whatever employment opportunities that we have there. We will be also looking to invite entrepreneurs. We have a lot of young upcoming entrepreneurs who many of us may not know about, and they have a product or service that should be out in the public, should be more available to persons. So the plan is to market them. The plan is to bring necessary awareness to things that are already happening and how we can enhance them. And in that one spot, during that fair, let's say, for example, what the plan is, we're going to be advertising job. So with advertising the job, we want to ensure that some of these applicants are career ready, so to speak. And we're going to have persons on board to be offering assistance with the resumes or interviews or stuff like that, because we have to prepare them. Truth and in fact, some persons may not know exactly what it looks like to dress professionally. And as simple as it may look, it is a big thing for employers. So we have to help these young persons, or anybody in particular who wants to set their foot forward when it comes to their career. So we are just providing information. You know, we want to bring on board inland revenue, because a lot of entrepreneurs not familiar with is how important it is when it comes to the taxes and stuff like that. We want to bring small business on board, of course, again, to give them further information on how it goes about running their businesses. So it's about growth, it's about sustainability, it's about innovation, and it's about continuity and consistency that will be definitely displaying for persons who are looking to be a part of the Better Opportunity Fair.
Right. Okay, when and where?
The date and the time, the place has not been identified as yet, but we are still in that planning stage. We meet every other Thursday, so hopefully by this Thursday we'll have a better idea of the venue and the time. Okay.
So, but can you limit it, break it down in terms of like a quarter? Because of course, well, this is March now, so you imagine maybe in the second quarter of the year?
We're planning to have this Better Opportunity hopefully by the end of April.
Okay.
But an exact day, we have not decided on that day, because we want to close off that, as a matter of fact, in the first quarter. We want to go with a bang, so to speak. So every quarter we plan is to have, we're going to be continuing with initiative activities, but at the end of every quarter we want to end off with something that would leave and such an impact that we want to go on to the next stage. We want to end off where we have persons want to come on board just from what they would have seen from the last one. So it's about having consistency and making sure that we set that mark, so persons who are coming on board, persons who are having doubt would definitely want to be a part of the citizen security initiatives.
Right. You mentioned also inland revenue. Is Social Security included as well?
Yes, Social Security, of course. We have to bring, and these are the type of stakeholders that we want to bring on board, those that are valuable to the growth and the uplifting of communities.
Because there are a lot of young persons who, when they start working, they don't see the value of Social Securities. They're young, they're strong, they're healthy.
Yes, and they're fine.
It's making less, it's taking money out of my pocket.
That's how they look at it, yes. You know, so with these, again, I think it's because they probably don't understand the long-term goal of it and how it would benefit them in the long run. So these are persons and stakeholders we want to bring on stream. And even after the day of, we want it to be an avenue where they feel confident and comfortable going to these various business locations and ask for additional information, you know?
Right, and of course a critical discussion would have to be had with them, of course.
Yes.
There's a decision that the cabinet is making on whether to adjust, or should I say how to, because I don't think it's a matter of whether. I think it's a matter that it must be done. Based on IMF reports, based on local reports, of course, there must be reform to the Social Security system.
Correct.
And so they have to be aware, they have to know what's happening, and they have to be also to give their input. Sergeant, I imagine, of course, the Royal St. Christopher and Nevis Police Force would have a high-level presence at that Better Opportunities Fair.
Definitely. Ms. Carey is our force personnel, and she's also in the recruiting stage, so we'll definitely be out in our numbers, advertising our best attributes.
Based on experiences from the past, because I would have attended a session, I think it was sometime last year, and there was the NIT Teams Day, was that held at Royal St. Kitts Hotel. I don't quite remember the name right now. But what is the importance of having the police force and other agencies, whether it be the St. Kitts and Nevis Fire and Rescue Services or the Coast Guard unit, what is the importance of having them present at initiatives such as these, where persons can come out and learn more about the career opportunities there?
For one thing, a lot of persons, a lot of our youths got the notion that police is just about locking up persons. There are a lot of departments that in the police force. There's the forensic, there's the cyber unit, there's the LIO, the local intelligence office. There are so much offices. The telecom, yes. The 911, that they will call through for the 911. So bringing the awareness to our youth that there are job opportunities inside of the police force, other than just saying that police is just there for enforcement part of it.
Ms.
So
Carey, this is your area. I imagine you have a lot to say.
Well, I mean, I would say a lot. Just to sum it up, because even me, right? The police was not my, but I can learn to appreciate, after being in this role, I can learn to appreciate the work that the police do. I can learn to appreciate the opportunities that are there. Persons look at us as, no, we can't trust y'all. No, we don't want to be a part of that. But that's because sometimes we don't take the time out to understand, and we don't take the time out to want to be a part. And why I say that is because if we're looking at national security, if we're looking at citizen security, we must understand that there must be a relationship between the communities and the police force. Because if you're looking at the rise, if you're looking at what's going on with the youths, how would we find out certain things? We're not there in household, we're not there in the communities every day. So it must be a partnership. So I can say I can definitely learn to appreciate the work of the police officers, especially since we are now in the communities again. I think this would have started sometime under CG Warren, and it's now back in play. And it is great because the communities, they welcome us. We receive, of course, the constructive criticism. We don't take anything personal. We just take it back to the board. We just take it back to the drawing board, and we look at how we can improve, because we want to ensure that communities are safer. We want to ensure that families feel that they can trust. We want to ensure that the communities feel like they're in a position that they can give information that will bring up justice, that can bring change. If we're about change, if we're about upliftment, if we're about growth, it must be a partnership, and we must turn our eye away from the negative side of the police force and look at the main objective, which is bringing down the crime, which is ensuring that citizens are safe, which is ensuring that we can work collaboratively to meet the whole.
Right, and we certainly look forward to hearing more about the better opportunities fair when the time comes. I imagine that the public and private, well, public we mentioned, yes, but private sector involvement as well too, especially with the entrepreneurs, as you mentioned. Right. Okay, so we're going to take our final break, and when we come back, we want to discuss a bit about how we see the initiatives of the Citizen Security Secretariat impacting local crime.
Okay.
Stay with us. We'll be right back for more In Focus.
I want to thank all those who participated, all of our key stakeholders. Special thanks to the Ministry of Education, and of course to our children and young people who were so receptive to all of the messages around making sure that they say no to violence, say no to drugs, but say yes to peace and yes to kindness.
Me no know about you, but me not think it's bad.
Thank you so much for staying with us here on In Focus, and we continue our conversation with members of the Citizen Security Task Force Secretariat. Of course, that would be Sergeant Adine, who is a task force member, and Ms. Eartha Carey, who is also the coordinator for the Citizen Security Secretariat. All right, now, Ms. Carey, the Citizen Security Secretariat, it has a very broad mandate. How are you ensuring that the work being done is inclusive and addresses the needs of all vulnerable populations? And of course, that would include youth, that would include women.
Of course.
That would include persons with disabilities. I have to put a plug in there for that, because most of the times they're overlooked. And also other groups at risk.
Okay. It's about inclusion. And why I say inclusion, when we looked at the, the data that we would have received from the USAID back in 2023, it would have outlined a lot of the things that were affecting us. And if we want to make an impact when it comes to resolution, we first have to also look at inclusion. Who can we include? Do we leave anyone out? No. So definitely when it comes to carrying out the mandate of the Secretariat and ensuring that these initiatives are well kept, we're going to have to make persons want to be a part of what we will have going on. We're going to want to make persons, we want to influence them in the most positive way, to show them that the work of the Secretariat, the objective of the Secretariat, the overall objective of the Prime Minister is to ensure that we are looking at mechanisms that can be applied to what we have going on.
Will there be continuing to be ongoing engagements in terms of, like, say, town hall meetings, going out for one-on-ones,
Yes.
have that interaction, especially as in the schools you mentioned?
Yes. Yes, there will definitely be continuity. We're going to keep going back out into the communities because that's where the answers are. Again, we can't stay from the back hole and get the answers. So we're going to be continuously engaging the communities. We're going to be also engaging employers. We're going to be engaging anybody that can be influential, anyone that can lend the support, provide information that is going to be a part of what we are trying to achieve. We're definitely going to look into those areas.
And of course, Sergeant, that's important because the nature of crime and the nature of people is that we are always finding new ways to do new stuff. And unfortunately, as the old saying goes, the devil has worked for idle hands. And so, yes, tell us a bit about how that is going to work, how the police is going to work with the Secretariat and help to reach out to persons and involve them as well.
For us at the Royal St. Christopher Nevis Police Force is basically, as Ms. Carey said, continue being out there in the community, not only with citizen security, but also in the district. All district police has a responsibility. It's not only on the NIT, but we all have a responsibility to be out there engaging our community. My part is to continue to expand the TAPS program to reach more students, and offering gender-sensitive topics or intervention programs to our women and female. Providing rehabilitation and integration support for former offenders is also important.
That's very important because, of course, when you would have paid your debt to society, it's important that you be given a second chance. It's important that persons don't see you and automatically bracket you and say that you have no contributions to make. Well, part of the restorative justice system is that I have already paid my debt, give me an opportunity to contribute positively. Now, last January, I believe it was, we had members of the High Command. It actually was Commissioner James Sutton, Deputy Commissioner Henry, and also Travis Rogers, who is an ACP. And they shared some statistics with us, and I would just, Sergeant, want to run through them. And of course, it noted that there was a notable 11% decrease in crime in 2024 when we compared to 2023. Now, firearm-related offenses were down 39%, and of course, there were no homicides, or have been no homicides for the year, and of course we give God thanks for that. How would you say the initiatives of the Citizen Security Secretariat, the Citizen Security Task Force, the team itself is helping to stabilize and to have the reductions in crime that we are currently enjoying?
The success of the 90 Days campaign speaks for itself, as we have the reduced crime going on right now. The impact of the National Intervention Team into the communities with the outreach and early intervention strategies is also important. The reinstatement of the TAPS, you'll always hear me speak about the TAPS because that is one of the things that came out of the beyond the 90 days, and it was the reinstating the TAPS, and I am so happy that we are on board to impact our youths in a positive way.
Ms. Carey?
Again, it's about building relationships, establishing or reigniting restoration. So I would say it's a move forward, but with moving forward, we have to still look at the areas that are probably being neglected and what we can restore.
And so with that being said, how do you see the role of the Citizen Security Secretariat evolving in the coming years? And I imagine that it will be around for years and years to come.
Yes, that's the plan.
Right, in terms of prevention, in terms of rehabilitation and long-term community engagement strategies, because of course, as you mentioned, things change, people change. You have to find ways to adapt and keep persons involved and address the critical new needs that pop up, and that also includes, of course, the fact that our population is becoming more diverse as well too.
Yes, and it will take me back to what I said. It's about the qualitative data that we would have received from the report from the USAID, because from that report we were able to understand exactly what was going on. We understand the grassroots, and with finding what the grassroots are, we were able to look at whether there are existing programs or we're looking at implementing. We're looking at various frameworks that would support the findings. in a sense that we're going to find solutions from what, because we have already identified what some of the issues are. We have resources available, but they're just not in play for some persons that are just not aware of what is going on. In terms of continuity, of course, we're going to always be looking at ways to enhance or implement. So we're going to match that with what we would have received from the data from the USAID and use that to look at ways, mechanisms, or how we engage the communities. It would be about, we have to continuously be in the communities because that's where the answers, the information is. And once we get the information from the communities, or anybody who has information that still doesn't want to be a part, we welcome it. I want to make that clear. We welcome that information. We're going to look at ways how persons can send in information and remain confident, right? Because that's one of the issues that was also in the findings. Or we talk about whatever it is, but then down the road we still feel unsafe because either the name was revealed or information was given that, oh, it's a possibility that is that person.
Are there any specific strategies, and Sergeant, I'll ask you the same question as well too, from the NIT side of it, are there any specific strategies that are targeting persons who are not who weren't born in St. Kitts and Nevis, any citizens? Because of course, as I mentioned, we have a very growing diverse population, persons who are from regional countries, persons who are Spanish speaking, persons who are from China or within that community as well.
I'm happy that you mentioned that about, because the Spanish communities, they has been on board from day one. You know, we have persons like Andy, I don't know his last name, but we have person like Andy who came on board. He actually organized the community engagement for the Spanish communities. And we also had help, we had assistance from Austin, Edinburgh, and other persons who are very much in the area speaking Spanish, so they understood the lingo that we are speaking. So yes, definitely we are engaging other communities, we are engaging other countries when it comes to sharing their ideas, or we welcome anything on board.
Sergeant?
I'm also glad that you mentioned that, because just about maybe a few weeks ago, my team and I was discussing introducing Spanish, because especially in the Mat Night Police Club, we have a few Spanish coming to our club as well, so that we have that conversation in Spanish at least once a month or every 3 weeks. We have a teacher coming. We have already identified that teacher. So work is being done in order to that everybody feels as if they have that voice, that they are also involved in what we are doing. And this is one of the ways that we're strengthening the prevention strategies when it comes to the National Intervention Team, not only going into the schools, but also into the communities.
Now, Ms. Carey, I do have to ask about, because you mentioned it several times, the contributions of USAID. Now, of course, that organization currently is in flux. So I would imagine that there would have to be those partnerships formed that would fill the gap that USAID provides.
Yes, and that's something that we're going to take back again to the meetings, and we're going to start looking at other areas where we can definitely tap into, because we don't want to be at a loss where we lost that, that area and then we just lapse on it. Because if we want it to be continuous, if we want it to be successful, we have to start looking at other areas or other countries that we can tap into, who will be definitely willing to come on board to support what we are really looking at.
We spoke a lot about the 90-day campaign and the findings. Are they available to the public? Can persons access the information?
Some of it is available, but again, they can always come to the Secretariat. You may ask where. You can find me at the back of the police station, or you can also look at going into government headquarters, and you can get information. As long as it's relatable and is out there for the public to know, you will definitely get that information. Because we're not trying to hide information. Because if you're engaged in the communities, it's only fair that they get back some sort of information. But we just have to, again, work hand in hand when it comes to that. So, yes, information can be available.
Right, okay. Unfortunately, we are out of time for our program.
That's fine.
So I would like to thank you, ladies, for coming out and sharing the information. It certainly is a lot, and I'm certainly looking forward to having additional and future engagements with both of you. And of course, I know, Sergeant, there's an Easter camp coming up, and information is available on the police Facebook page, and so we want to encourage persons to go there. I'm sorry we weren't able to give you an opportunity to speak about that, but all of that is a part of the strategy of engaging with our nationals, engaging with persons of various age committees, and so we certainly look forward to having additional conversations going forward. All right. So Carey and Sergeant Odin, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.
I'd like to thank you, viewers and listeners, for joining us for this edition of InFocus. We trust that you will join us next week at the same place, at the same time, for another edition of InFocus, your government, your business. I'm Ian Richards.
Join us every Wednesday for InFocus, a weekly talk show produced by the St. Kitts Nevis Information Service, where we provide exclusives with key persons within the government and discuss pertinent, relevant, and interesting matters that affect us all. Tune in every Wednesday, live on ZIZ Radio and streamed live on Facebook at SKNIS Media and ZIZ Online. InFocus, your government, your business.